This is Robert. I want to talk to you a little bit today about telepathy. This is a subject, as you know, that people have been interested in for years and years. And I feel there's even more interested in it now. So, here goes. This is something I'm pretty good at. Part of the reason I know is because I acknowledge that everything is alive. And acknowledging that, I feel, is the basis of it. Not only is everything alive, but I feel everything has soul and personality, because how could we be created out of some separate fabric than any other being on this planet? I understand that our spirits and souls might belong to a different group of beings, okay? But at the same time, we're all made up of the substance of Mother Earth. However, I don't want to get into a quibble about that with other folks who have perfectly valid opinions as well. I'm just bringing that up because I feel it's important to understand how it fits into telepathy. When I see a creature or a being, whether they be the tiniest little gnat flying around, or whether they be the biggest creature I see around here from time to time, which is whales, I'm inclined to talk to them the same way I would talk to others, with the exception of the fact that I've been taught a few things about communicating with other species over time. I recall once, when I was living in Sedona, going down to Red Rock Crossing, which is a beautiful area that those of you who have visited Sedona probably know about. It was late in the day, maybe around 4 o'clock, and there was still a lot of sun on the rocks. There's a particular rock that's kind of comfortable, and I sat down on it, and I noticed to my right that there was a fairly good-sized spider sitting there. And I immediately apologized to the spider. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were here." And the spider sort of acknowledged me. They have a way of doing this without moving. The main thing is when I sat down, the spider kind of flinched. Just vibrated a bit. But then, after I apologized, almost immediately, I got this picture. I saw, and it was in my mind's eye, and I sort of closed my eyes to study it. I saw this sort of like it was all dark, and then there was a little light. And then the light got bigger and bigger, and then beyond the light I could see a rock. And then there was a definite feeling of something moving over the rock. And I realized it was a message from the spider. And the spider basically showed me the day that Spider had had. Got up, I guess, in the morning after sleep and went out, crawled over the rocks by the creek there, and found a little smackerel or something for breakfast, and then sat in the sun and eventually got over to that rock that I sat on. And the spider educated me by saying to me in ways I could understand that this is how we introduce ourselves. And then I heard a word that said politeness. So I did the same thing. I pictured in my mind's eye, as I am right now, how I got up in the morning, went to the sink and brushed my teeth. I just showed basic highlights like that. Getting dressed, and then driving down to the creek with Nancy, and then us just being there. and then I stopped. And I felt this great warmth. This warmth that I've spoken about here and on these blogs, and also Grandfather has talked to you about extensively. And this great warmth is love, and I'm feeling it right now in recollection of this. There's more. There were other occasions when I had this experience, talking to other beings. Sometimes they were really little beings, like little beetles, who are just as loving. I've talked to little beetles and big beetles, and one thing I've noticed is that when I'm talking to them in this way, telling them how wonderful they are and how much I appreciate them being on the planet, and it's really important to do that, because they're here for a reason, or they wouldn't be here. And doing that, they would turn their heads and look at me. And then sometimes they would introduce themselves. Other times I remembered what Spider would tell me, and I would introduce myself. Well, this could be very long, but I don't want to ramble off into too many stories like this. I just want to talk to you about telepathy today. This is what I feel from my long experience. We can talk to the animals, and those of you who have pets know this. And if we speak to them with love and appreciation for who they are, and do not have an attachment to the outcome, all right? And that's really important. Then sometimes we can form not only kinships and friendships, but we can also form a great deal of trust between the human being, us, and other beings, animals. I know a lot of us are very upset about how many animals have been leaving, but I feel that if we talk to them like this, we might be able to encourage them to stick around a bit longer, especially if they're treated better. So, here's the thing. I'd like you to consider something, and that's to talk to the animals, whoever they may be, especially if they're ones that you find attractive or fun or you like to see them. And they don't have to be pets. They don't have to be visiting your home. They can just be out in the wild, free beings. And if you want to, you can just talk to one or more of them. And what I found really works is to tell them how beautiful they are and how much you appreciate their being here on Earth. And I often say something along the lines of wishing them well with their families and children, assuming that they are like us and would care about these things. And it often develops a strong relationship. The other day, I have these beetles that occasionally visit this apartment, and they're really unusual. They're teensy-weensy, but they're really unusual, and they don't do any harm to me. They're not stinging or anything like that. They just happen to be around, part of life here where I live. And I saw one of them. I have a kind of an arrangement with beetles and other critters. If they want to go outside, and I can take them outside in some gentle way, I ask them to get up on the wall in some light place where I can see them clearly and easily, and then I'll gently take them out. Well, I saw a beetle doing that, and I thought, oh, the beetle wants to go out, and I turned around to get the stuff I used to take them out gently, and then I got a feeling, no, that's not quite it. And I looked at the beetle and I said, did you want to go out? And the beetle immediately ran in another direction. as if to tell me, no, that's not it. So I thought, okay, that isn't it. And then the beetle ran back. The moment I thought, oh, that's not it, the beetle literally ran back, and they don't usually run. These beetles are kind of slow. Ran back and resumed the place they were in. I thought, what's this about? And the beetle and I sort of played that game for about a minute until I realized the beetle was trying to remind me of something that I needed to do quickly. And when I remembered that, I went over to the computer and did it. And it just took a few seconds. And I went out of the room that I was in, that I have the computer in, back to the wall to thank Beetle, and Beetle was gone. See, they will help, even help you do things when there's a relationship, and this is just a wild and free being. So, what I've discovered is that it's important to not be attached when you're talking to them. Say you see a squirrel in the park or in the trees wherever you live, and you form this relationship with them. Then, in time, they might come around more often the way they do, and they're kind of smart, and they're kind of friendly, and they're kind of funny. For those of you who've noticed that squirrels have a sense of humor, they're real bright. But don't be attached to them coming over and taking, say if you want to give them some food, a nut from your hands. That might happen, but for starters, they would have to feel absolute unconditional love from you, and they'd have to feel a genuine sense of love and appreciation. They'll know if you're kidding them. And the worst part about that is that the word gets out. So, before I ramble too far, I wanted to say that I recommend you try telepathy first with animals, especially wild ones. I know you can talk to your dog and your cat, and especially with your dog you might get more of a response because they're very earth dogs. And cats, while being earth, are also very strong in spirit. Not all of them, but some of them. So this might work better with dogs. So you can do that with dogs if you can't get out. Okay, I know some of you can't. But if you can get outside, or even look through your windows outside, this will work fine. Just do something like this. Years ago, I had this experience. Not too many years ago. And I believe I've written about it on a blog somewhere, but I can't find it at the moment. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this video. Anyway, some time ago, there were whales swimming by. They do that at a certain time of the year here in Hawaii. And I would see them come and go, and they're so beautiful. And sometimes they just jump out of the water, and I could tell, I could feel that they were doing this just to be happy. You know, we do things sometimes when we're happy, and they do too. So one day I saw a group of whales. I know it's called a pod, but I saw a group of them going by, and you can tell when they're going by because you can see like a plume of water suddenly pop up in the air, and that's them coming to the surface to breathe. So they were going by, and I could see them at a distance. Now, keep in mind that the window I was looking out at that moment was pretty high up, and the whales were at least maybe 3 miles away, maybe 2 miles away. And it was a fairly significant distance. It's possible it's just 1 mile away, but this is what I can recall. And they were swimming by kind of leisurely. And I remember speaking to them, and this is basically what I said. I just talked to them as if they were right here in the room, and I wasn't talking any louder than I'm talking now, but I did talk out loud. Make sure you talk out loud, because that makes it physical, and it's part of the earth. So, here I am talking quietly, maybe even quieter than I'm talking now, And this is what I said. I thank you so much for your beauty. I really appreciate how you exist, and I appreciate your beauty and the love that you are. I can feel it when you swim by, and I just want you to know that I welcome you to swim by here any time, and I'll do everything I can to support you. And that was it. May not have been word for word, but it gives you a gist. And all of a sudden, the whales kind of bobbed up to the surface a little closer. And one of the whales just got sort of turned around. They were swimming in one direction. And one of them came up to the surface, well out of the water, really almost not leaping out of the water, but came up high out of the water and looked right at me. And I had this tremendous feeling of love. And we just shared it for a moment. And then they went on. A little while later, a few days later, another whale was going by. And at that time, I had been looking on YouTube at a video that somebody got that was of a whale breaching. It was really special. And I asked the whale that was going by, it looked like just one, but it might have been one kind of a little farther away from a group. That's always possible. And I asked the whale, just talking the same way as I did before, if it wouldn't mind jumping out of the water to show me how it was that they would do that. And the whale, now mind you, the whale was fairly close to shore, but it was in safe waters. The whale jumped out of the water 16 times in a row before I realized I had to tell whales, say, that's enough. I didn't want them to get exhausted. And I said, thank you so much, that's enough. And bink, that was it, the whale stopped. So I'm not telling you this to say, look at me, I'm so special. I'm telling it rather to you because I'm just a person like anybody else. I grant that I've had a lot of spiritual teachings, and there's a lot of things I can do, and that's good, and I'm doing my best to share most of them with you on the internet. But I wanted to tell you this because I know there's this great interest in telepathy, and I feel that telepathy might be a good way to welcome the animals, to encourage them to stay, to ask them to be here and share their beauty. And I feel if more people do that, maybe less of the animals will just all of a sudden leave. I know that we eat the animals, and I feel that most of them understand that. But there's some that aren't meant for us to eat, and I'm sure you can find out which ones on your own. And even if they are meant for us to eat, we need to make sure that there's plenty of them left over. So next time you see a fish, whether you're fishing or not, or next time you're out hunting, because that needs to be done for some folks who, I want you to understand, those of you who don't like hunting. Hunting is very often done by people who need food for their families. And I feel if that's what you're doing, that's a good thing. But when you're out doing that, I feel it's important to talk to them and tell them. Just talk quietly out loud and tell them how much you love and appreciate them for existing, and you welcome them and their families to be here. And if you're hunting or fishing, please tell them how much you will do to support them, and say prayers for them if that's the sort of thing that you do. Or you can do living prayer or benevolent magic as I've taught here and on the written blogs. I recommend this because they don't have to stay here. They're not required to be here, and they might be moving on. Some of them are moving on that we would really like to stay, like the cows, for instance. Grandfathers talked about that before, and so have I. So here's the thing. This video today is about telepathy, and I've told a few stories of real things that I've experienced with animals, and I'll tell more sometime if you're interested, including experiences I've had with dogs and cats. But right now, I just wanted to say that I feel that we can get good at telepathy, and maybe doing this homework, like I've suggested, you might be able to get so good at it that you can interact that way with a loved one. Remember to use pictures in your mind's eye in order to introduce yourself, as Spider taught, and be open to pictures they might be sending, as long as those pictures are comfortable to you. They're polite, so they're not going to send you anything scary. If you're feeling or seeing something scary from an animal, that may not be something they're sending. That's not what they usually do. They know how to be polite. So, I feel that it's possible that you can learn these things. If I did, you can. And try to remember that life here is about integration. And by integration, I mean this. It's not here about integration meaning that, you know? And you know what I mean by that. I feel that integration is about things coming together. And I'm absolutely positive the animals are here to be our teachers. So let's get a chance to learn from them before they go. And in time, as we learn how to fly deeper into space, we'll probably go someplace too. And who knows, maybe we'll meet them someday on their home planets. Let me know if you're interested in this telepathy, and if you are, maybe I can teach more about it sometime. Good life.